Most people think the Honda Goldwing is just a luxury touring bike. I don't. I've always felt the Goldwing is more like a moving living room that somehow corners like a much smaller motorcycle. And when I looked at the 2026 version, what surprised me wasn't the power or the tech, it was how little Honda actually changed, and why that might be intentional. I noticed the 1833cc flat 6 is still here. Still huge, still smooth. And honestly, that tells you everything about Honda's philosophy. This engine layout isn't about chasing spec sheet wars. It's about long-term comfort and reliability. The current generation still runs that horizontally opposed six-cylinder setup with about 93 kilowatts of power and massive torque around 170 newton meters. And here's what most people miss. The Goldwing is not trying to be exciting in the first 5 minutes. It's designed to be exciting after 500 kilometers. That's a totally different design mindset. I compared it mentally with bikes like big adventure tours or sport tours. Those bikes impress you fast. The Goldwing grows on you slowly. The smoothness, the shaft drive, the low center of gravity, it all starts making sense when you ride all day without fatigue. A practical takeaway here? If you judge this bike based on a short test ride, you might misunderstand it completely. Another thing that caught my attention is the suspension philosophy. Honda still uses the double wishbone front suspension. On paper, it sounds like engineering flex, but when you really think about it, the goal is stability and rider confidence. The design changes wheel movement and keeps weight balanced closer to the front. What surprised me was how this affects riders' psychology, not just handling. Most touring riders don't want aggressive front-end dive. They want predictability, and that's exactly what this system delivers. The mistake many people make is assuming luxury bike equals soft handling. Not here. This thing is heavy, yes, around 800 plus pounds wet, but it hides weight shockingly well because of that suspension geometry and engine placement. If you're planning long highway trips, this matters way more than peak horsepower numbers. Now let's talk transmissions, because this is where the Goldwing quietly dominates. I noticed Honda keeps pushing the DCT option harder every year, and honestly, it makes sense. The automatic dual clutch with multiple gears and overdrive ratios is basically designed for highway efficiency and zero fatigue riding. Here's the misconception. Many riders think automatic means less control, but on a bike designed for crossing countries, removing clutch fatigue is actually performance, not just convenience. My takeaway? If you're buying Goldwing for touring, DCT isn't a compromise, it's probably the smarter choice. Something else most people overlook is how much tech is quietly integrated here. Wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, full infotainment, heated seats, cruise control, riding modes, electronic windscreen, even airbag options on some trims. But what I noticed is Honda hides this tech behind simplicity. You don't feel like you're operating a spaceship. You feel like you're riding a motorcycle that just happens to make your life easier. The mistake? People assume touring tech is just extra luxury. In reality, on 8-hour rides, navigation clarity, communication systems, and rider comfort tech directly affect safety and focus. Let's talk weight and ergonomics, because this is controversial. The seat height is surprisingly low, roughly around 29-inch range depending on trim. That changes everything. This bike looks intimidating, but once you sit on it, it suddenly feels manageable. I've always felt Honda engineered confidence into this bike, not just performance. If you're shorter or worried about big touring bikes, this is one of the few mega tours that doesn't feel like climbing onto a horse. Now here's my personal comparison moment. If you compare Goldwing to something like BMW K1600 or big Harley tours, the Honda feels more machine-refined instead of character-heavy. Some riders want mechanical drama, engine vibration, loud personality. The Goldwing is the opposite. It's silent power, effortless speed, calm confidence. And honestly, that's why some riders fall in love with it and others get bored. Pricing and positioning also reveal Honda's mindset. The base model starts around the mid-20K range depending on market, but premium touring trims go much higher depending on features. This tells me Honda isn't trying to be affordable, they're trying to be the reference point, like the benchmark other touring bikes are compared to. Here's the biggest insight I realized after digging into this bike. The Goldwing isn't evolving fast because it doesn't need to. Honda is refining details instead of reinventing the concept. Lighter engine internals, better electronics, smarter transmission behavior, small changes that matter after thousands of kilometers. And that's very un-YouTube friendly, but very real-world smart. If I had to give one real-world takeaway, the 2026 Goldwing isn't for people chasing adrenaline. It's for riders chasing distance, comfort, and effortlessness. And honestly, I think that's why it's survived for decades. Personally, every time I study the Goldwing, I don't see a motorcycle trying to prove something. I see a motorcycle that already knows exactly what it is and refuses to chase trends.